welcome.
Hello, everybody.
I'm ready. Are you ready?
I think so. I'm like, you can still probably hear my microwave going because I was like, it's.
Should we start off today's broadcast with dun 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 dun? No.
At least 3 different people said to me today, "Oh, it's President's Day. I'm so sorry I scheduled this appointment." I had like 6 or 7. I think it might have been 7 appointments today, and I'm like, I'm working. It's a just because banks are closed. That's actually not a bad thing because that just means that I have the ability to work without having to work.
Yeah, I don't have any distractions. I get more done. Yeah.
Yep. Exactly. So this is not a bad thing at all.
So today's episode, ladies and gentlemen, Gladys and I decided, because today is President's Day, that we would talk about what presidents ate and drank. And I'm sure Gladys has a favorite meal that she has, probably not based off of a favorite president.
Right.
Just like me. I have a favorite meal, but I'm not going to say it was my favorite president. I just my favorite president's meal. How's that?
And the thing is that I had so many different options that I was debating. What do I want? And it wasn't. It happened that Sean made salmon, so I went with fish. Because no president liked pork chops or pork, and that was the other thing that I made, and so that wasn't going to work. And it's like, okay, what is going to work? And I hadn't bought steak, and so it was just like, I'm not going to make squirrel, although I probably, could get, one of those squirrels we have squirrels in Oregon all over the place. So I probably could have gotten a squirrel and made squirrel stew.
There was several presidents who liked squirrel too.
There was at least a couple of them that absolutely squirrel, and I was like, "What's squirrel stew or squirrel soup?" And I'm like, "You're kidding, right?"
So let's go down some of them and talk a little bit about what they have, and then we'll talk about what we decided to do. But I noticed there was only one president who picked what I liked, but of course I didn't. Well, no, there was a couple of different presidents that picked what I liked, but one president picked it the way I don't like it. We won't get into that, but there was a lot of presidents who we looked at what the most is. All right. Believe it or not, the most interesting one I thought was Thomas Jefferson liked mac and cheese.
Yeah, and that was one of the things I was looking at making, because that's also a decadent food, or you can make it into a very decadent food. Because originally we were thinking of maybe leap year, and so we're looking at decadent foods.
That's next week, though.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. So I'm glad I didn't do what I was going to do. I was going, oh no, we're doing presidents, so I skipped that. Yeah. But mac and cheese was one of the decadent foods, and I went, ooh, that sounds really good.
Which I may be doing next week, for the record. I don't know.
Okay, all right. So maybe I'll do something different.
Some of the interesting ones that I thought were, first of all, President Lincoln liked bacon. I gotta like him. Right there is a winner in president. He likes bacon.
I know that was one thing that I said. Oh my goodness, bacon! Who doesn't like bacon? But that was so awesome. And then there was some presidents that liked either cheeseburger or cheese pizza, which I thought, okay, well that's interesting.
They were more our modern presidents that got that. Into the 1900s, dishes got more like what we have today.
Yeah. So hoe cakes. There was a couple of presidents that like hoe cakes.
Hoe cakes. Yeah. What are hoe cakes?
Well, hoe cakes, what they are, it's like a pancake, but it's made with cornmeal. So that's what makes it so special, is that it's cornmeal, and then you add a lot of butter and honey. And there was at least a couple of presidents. Only one called it cornmeal cake, and the other one called it hoe cake. So when you look at George Washington, he's a hoe cake.
Hoe cake, yeah.
But if you look at who liked the cornmeal pancakes, that was Rutherford B. Hayes. It was same thing. So that was quite interesting. But it was, And I almost did that. And the reason, besides because our first president, like hoe cakes, I thought, oh, I'll make pancakes, even if it's not made with cornmeal. But then with Rutherford B. Hayes, they his wife, the first lady, Lucy, was what we would call now a hard ass. She was like banned alcohol, nothing in the Oval Office, all about absinthe, and so it was one of those things that they called her Lemonade Lucy because of the lifestyle. And even some of the staffers, they try to accommodate visitors and so they try to put rum into the punch. And then of course, Hayes found out. And so then it was this big thing, but it was not so much that he didn't like alcohol. It's more of he just took her stance on it and went kind of along with it. But that was not him throughout his entire life. It wasn't he that wanted to be alcohol free. But that was quite interesting. So I almost did that just to honor him and go, I'm sorry. I'm sorry you had to go through all of that.
Yeah. So no. The ones that had interestings that I liked, that I thought were very interesting. First of all, Franklin Pierce liked fried clams. All right. The one president who liked soup was Fillmore. President Fillmore liked soup. All right, and he's the only one that really listed as soup, and it doesn't say. I know in our descriptions we have an awful lot. All right, and we'll put this out on thing later, but we have an awful lot of the soups he liked, but it's just in general he liked soup. Yep.
I think he didn't meet the soup Nazi because there's no soup for you.
No soup for you. Yeah. One of the presidents actually had James Buchanan actually had cabbage, like cabbage.
Yeah. And some of these things were just the name of it was just kind of funky. It was britches or oh my goodness, what was it? The that had nothing to do with pants. But it was green beans with bacon. Yes. That's what it was. So that was, but it was something britches. It was just the funniest name that some of these foods had. And I'll find it because I know I have it written down around here somewhere. But that was quite interesting.
Did you find that any of the presidents were vegan?
Well, there was one that for health reasons started to go vegetarian. Okay. And it was a newer president. I think it might have been oh my goodness, he played the sax. His name just escaped me. Oh my goodness. Shoot. Clinton. I think it was Clinton. He, because of his health reasons, because he was all about cheeseburgers and fast food. Yeah. Oh my goodness, that boy could eat.
If you remember, when Clinton ran for president, I thought it very interesting that one of the things they did when he was running for president, they would show him going into donut shops, barbecue joints. All right. He did a lot of interesting things where he went and sat with the people. Right. And that was the likable thing I thought about Clinton. He'd have a meal with anybody. It's almost like, you know what I mean? You can't, when you say it was cheeseburgers, which is what I got to love because it is my favorite thing, cheeseburgers, right? He wasn't my favorite president, but I did like that he was a guy who would sit down with anybody to have a meal. Right? Especially when he was running for president, you could find him sitting in cafes, just talking to people, right? He really was a man who got down and ate meals with people like that. The one that I also thought was really, really strange was, where was it? Mutton chops, which was
yes. Well, that was funny when I said I almost did this, and I was like going when I was explaining that it's like I went with fish and didn't go with this because, and I was like, and I'm not about to have mutton. I was going to bring out mutton.
Yeah. Well, let's tell the audience, what is mutton?
All I can think about was the Seinfeld episode
Yes.
where Jerry did not like the mutton that the girlfriend had made, and so there was a big thing because he was spitting it out into her Mimi's or her grandma's napkins that ended up on as bandanas for dogs. So that was just hilarious. And they said, "Oh, there was some weird meat." So that was just kind of funny.
Yeah, I thought it was some sort of lamb and fish combo. I thought.
Yeah, it's lamb and mutton. It's essentially older sheep. So it's mutton is older sheep versus the young lamb. So and there is no age restriction, but it is pretty much lamb. And I'm not a lamb eater, so yeah.
But some of our interesting ones. Franklin Roosevelt, he was a grilled cheese guy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I mean, I don't see anywhere where one of the presidents would have said tomato soup and grilled cheese because that would have been my favorite. No, that is not the meal I made. All right, for those of you people who are wondering. And no, I didn't make a cheeseburger. I did think about making a cheeseburger, all right, because of Clinton, right? But we go down a lot of the foods, and I'll get to my food in a second. I'm sure you will too. But let's go through some of the drinks. Oh my gosh, the drinks.
There's a lot of drinkers, and there was one president that was considered the worst of them all. It was oh my goodness, I'm trying to think of who. I was laughing because I think he drank everything. I was like going everything. But yeah, there was a lot of drinking going on. Most presidents, the majority of presidents, liked some kind of wine, and then followed by whiskey. So your whiskey, your rye whiskey,
whiskeys and wines, I say, are the two favorites amongst presidents. We have several modern day presidents who didn't drink.
Yeah.
Going back to George W. Bush did not. He quit drinking because he had an alcohol problem when he was younger, so he quit drinking. I think before he was governor of Texas. All right, and then when he went on to be president, he was known as the Diet Coke president, right? And then Trump also, which you know how much, if you look at Trump's lifestyle before he became president, he was known to be at all these parties, but he didn't drink. And now, I mean, I knew that before we did this research that Trump was a non-drinking guy. He never drank, right? Alcohol was never something he did. And then I was shocked to find out our current president, Joe Biden, is a non-alcoholic. He does not drink. Yeah.
So one of the things that I did find out is that he did admit, Trump did, that there was a button that he pressed so that somebody was bringing him a Diet Coke.
I heard about that.
He had to press a button, get the Diet Coke.
Yeah.
And it was Pierce. He was from New England, and he's the one that loved the fried clams, clam chowder, apple pie. But he was always, when looking up his favorite drink, it was everything.
Yes.
And it was because he was the drunkest president in American history.
Yeah.
He drank a lot of everything, literally drank a lot of everything is what it said. And it says, so what can an ex-president of the United States do once he's no longer president? Well, get drunk. And you know what he died of at the age of 65?
What?
Cirrhosis. Cirrhosis of the liver at age 65.
Yeah.
That's how much he drank.
Yeah.
So he is considered the drunkest president, and that was Franklin Pierce.
Yeah. I did look to see how many liked martinis, and
I think there was a couple that liked martinis.
I'm trying to see. I think there was only like 2 or 3.
I think it was 2. Yeah, there was 2. One of them was Herbert Hoover.
Hoover was the first one I seen mentioned drinking a martini.
Yeah. And he liked wine and martinis. Yeah. And then, of course, Gerald Ford.
Gerald Ford was a martini drinker, yeah.
So those were our 2.
Interesting that only one person mentioned the Bloody Mary.
Yes.
Only one. I bet our listeners could never guess which president that was because I'm in shock. I thought he would be a martini president.
Yeah, I could see that. I can definitely see him, drinking a martini or drinking a brown liquor of some sort.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, he was president for a couple of years back in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
His favorite food was creamy clam chowder.
Of course.
Yeah, because
that makes sense. All right.
Yeah.
When you look at that president, but a Bloody Mary, I really thought he would be a
Right.
drinker. Yeah.
And he also drank daiquiris and Heineken. And the reason for the Heineken was so boohoo was because it was considered at the time a big deal because it was an imported beer.
Yes.
So he did drink other things, but his favorite was a Bloody Mary. So giving a few different little tidbits in there to see if anybody can figure out who this is.
Yeah, we'll see. If you figure it out, ladies and gentlemen, who the president was that drank a Bloody Mary, put it in the comments and we'll put it up when you guys get it. So
we'll come back to this.
We will.
The other thing that I found quite interesting that I was like, wait, what? Because hard ciders, I thought that was a newer thing. And it's been around for a long time. Back in the 1970 somethings into the early or the 1800s, and that was John Adams.
Mm-hmm.
He enjoyed what he called the morning gill, which was hard cider, while he was attending Harvard. And then he said he would never forget how refreshing it was to have, his hard cider. So hard cider. And then, of course, William Henry Harrison also liked hard cider. So I was like, oh my goodness, because I actually happen to have hard cider in my.
I have some in here too, but I didn't pull that out. That wasn't that's not the drink I'm having.
Yeah, no, that wasn't it either because I was going, no, but that was kind of cool. And then, of course, beer was another.
Several presidents liked beer. There was only one president who listed tea, and that was Benjamin Harrison.
Yeah.
So,
there was about 6 that liked beer, and beer and vodka martinis and beer. So including Barack Obama and George Bush, that they both liked beer, as well as Grover Cleveland, who was president twice. In case you all didn't remember, Chester A. Arthur, James Garfield, and then George Washington liked a dark porter. Mm-hmm. So that I threw it into the beer section. Yeah, so it's this was a lot of fun. It was like, oh my goodness, a lot of work to put all this together, but it was a lot of fun to.
But let's talk about the most interesting drink on there, because it's a one-off. All right, and
besides water. Besides water.
The water with Abraham Lincoln was water. He drank water, but the one-off weird drink was the snake bite.
Oh yes. So the funny thing about the snake bite is a combination of 1 part cider and 1 part lager. And this president was denied getting a snake bite in the UK because it was illegal. Yes. And it reminded me of me trying to get Red Bull and vodka when I was in New Mexico, where they're like, no. And I was like, what? They're like, well, we can't give you an up or a downer. And I was like, and so I said, well, can I have a Red Bull? They said, sure. And I'm like, can I have a shot of vodka? So they did. And I was like, and I got my, glass with ice. And so I went to the table with my mama, and my mate mixed my own Red Bull and vodka. So, but that was quite interesting. And this is a more modern president. And it was back in the 90s.
And actually, yes, he's the same president that liked cheeseburgers.
But I just like the name of the drink. It was so cool.
It was an interesting name to drink. All right. And the fact that, it's the only one. He's the only one that had it. All right. But what I found interesting was, in all of our drinks, knowing the thing that brought you and I together was, number one, whiskey was mentioned a lot, but I did not see anywhere a moonshine. And I'll bet you, I'm wondering, because really moonshine wouldn't have been like an outlawed type substance until Prohibition.
Right.
All right. Before that, a lot of people made their own alcohol. They had their own stills, things like that. It wasn't until after Prohibition that moonshine became, all right, a backwoods type thing that was illegal, and it had to do with the tax.
Exactly.
There is,
So
Cherry Bounce was one of the known moonshines, and the recipe goes back to either Washington or Jefferson that was made, but I can't remember. Yeah.
yeah, it was, but it wasn't mainstream because it was just kind of back there. Well, it was um, the one that drank assorted cocktails was Franklin D. Roosevelt.
Yes.
Well, of course, he's also the one that that he's the one that was most associated with cocktails because he loved his gin-based martinis, his whiskey Manhattans, as well as Bermuda rum. So that was quite interesting. But that was one of, and he's also the one that likes grilled cheese.
Yep.
But he also is the one that signed the Colin-Harrison Act, which essentially removed prohibition.
Yes.
So he probably was like, "Hey, I want my, I want my
MTV, my alcohol, as the case may be." Yeah. Anyway, now let's go down to what did you decide to make for food that was presidential tonight? Fish. What do you think Tim made?
It wasn't a cheeseburger. It was mutton. You made mutton.
Nope.
No. Did you make shepherd's pie?
Nope. Steak and potato.
Well, the funny thing is that I did have a potato.
Mm-hmm.
I almost did a potato, but nobody liked potatoes. So then I was like, what else could I do? And I almost did bacon, to sprinkle on the potato, but I had fish. And so fish was the easiest for me to go with. Nothing to do with anything other than there was a president that did like fish, and I happen to have fish. And
steak and potato. That was William Taft, like steak and potato. Theodore Roosevelt liked. He liked steak and gravy.
Yes.
And where was the one that was?
There's a well done steak, which I was like, well, we have got to.
Was a steak well done. Well, Mr. Truman, you are not getting your wish with me, Mr. President. Sorry, mine's pink in the middle.
Right. So, and that's Taft. So Roosevelt, Taft, and Truman. I couldn't believe Truman. It had to be well done. It had to be. I was like, ew, that's just. Then why have a steak? Go with something else if you're gonna, go with that. So it was McKinley that liked both meat and fish, and he also liked rye. So I had pulled out my James Oliver rye whiskey, and so I pulled that out. I do have some Angel's Envy over here.
Envy rye, baby.
So, and then the other thing, which originally I had taken to the office, and then I opted to I didn't want to stink up the office, even if it was at the end of the night. I did not want to stink it up with fish. So I opted to come home. But I had gotten the original single barrel bourbon whiskey. So it's Kentucky. So I thought, you know what? And it has a little horse. And they have the various, there's various tops that have the various horses in the various positions. So sitting, starting, doing all the things.
I have some Woodford Reserve bourbon to go with. So, yep, I have that on the table as well. Because the Truman liked bourbons. Several of them liked bourbons.
And so my thought was there was one president that did say old fashioned. And so that's why I was like going, okay, I kind of like the old fashioned. So that's why I was like going, well, maybe I'll make an old fashioned, So that was kind of where I was going with that was, old fashioned with and then the sad part is that the person that liked the oh my goodness, Taft, he liked the bourbon. He liked his old fashioned. He would complain that his staff made his old fashioned too weak. So that was kind of funny. He's also the one, oh my goodness, a steak well done. So I was like, I liked him on one end because of the old fashioned, and then I was very disappointed on his steak, so it was kind of this, Truman, I'm very disappointed in you. So I have all the stuff to make my old fashioned. But I wanted to bring out the stuff and then determine what I was going to do. But it was kind of meat and fish. I went with meat and fish. I can do that. I like both meat and fish. So in this case, it's salmon because this is the Pacific Northwest. So
yeah.
It's
and of course, while we were talking, my steak got cold.
Of course, I thought you would have been eating it and just kind of.
We had 2 inches, but the neat thing is the microwave is a step away, so I'm gonna go microwave while you talk about a couple of things your favorite.
Oh my goodness! So Roosevelt having grilled cheese, that was one of the other things I was going to do. I was going to make a grilled cheese. So I got the sourdough bread. I have a Gruyere cheese. I also have a white sharp cheddar, which I thought those two would kind of go well together. So that's one that I seriously considered making because grilled cheese is so easy to make. And then when you pair it with something yummy like tomatoes or tomato soup. But if you just want something simple, you can just make a grilled cheese. You can add ham to it. You can add tomatoes to it. So that was one of the things that I really thought would be kind of fun to do. And with the assorted cocktails, that just makes it so much easier. Like, I could do anything like a martini or a Manhattan or a rum, which I have all the stuff to make all those things. But that was the one that I seriously thought that I would wind up doing. But then I was like, I had my fish here that was still calling my name. And so I thought, you know what, I'm going to go the easy route and go with fish. But the grilled cheese was truly at the top of my list of, this sounds different. You can make a fun grilled cheese and then just bring it to the table and do bring it up a notch, bring it up a level. That there's nothing wrong with that. And so, yeah, you just needed like 20 seconds just to warm it up and not cook it through.
Yep. I don't want to get it too. I want to keep that pink in the middle.
Mm-hmm. So I want to share the Blanton. This is I will have to thank my neighbor Penny. So an early shout out when she got the Blanton in, because it doesn't come around as often. She messaged me and said, and she had asked me, she knows what I like. So she had put one aside with my name on it and said, can you pick it up? And I was like, yep. So look at that gorgeous bourbon, that caramel color. It's just absolutely delicious. It's just got a great flavor, great smell, great color.
I'm a rye. Rye.
So this James Oliver rye had been told was great with old fashions, and they are. I really liked it, but the blend I can drink like this, or I could get one of my cubes, my little cubes, and throw it in there. I don't think I put a full shot in there. I think it's a half a shot that I threw in there. But I wanted to see how it would taste with my fish. So.
So my steak is a cheap steak my wife got. Because I was at a class yesterday when she was going to the grocery store. She says, what do you need? I said, I need a steak. Oh, I had a steak in the freezer I should have pulled out. Would have been better. I do not like cheap steaks.
I was going to say, when you're doing steak, you really have to look at, is it choice or is it, what level is it? Is it a thick? Is it thin? I mean, I remember when I moved to Texas, I couldn't find a 1-inch thick steak. I would really wanted a 2-inch, but I was willing to settle for a 1-inch. Everything was like these skinny things. I'm like, what the heck? It's like, well, nobody eats thick steaks. I'm like, I'm in Texas, dang it. But I was on the west side of Texas, so that's not what they ate there.
On the west side of Texas, they don't have much teeth over there.
So bad. So bad. We'll have friends there. They have their teeth. Or at least they paid for them. But
anyway, no. Yeah, they do skinny pieces of steak. They cut up in little bits and they put it in their burritos. They call it tortillas.
Yeah, these little skinny burritos. The first time I got a burrito, I'm like, what the hell is this?
Fajitas. All right, because you go down here to the meat market, they've got good fajita meat.
Right.
This steak that I have would have been better for fajita meat.
Mm.
No, but my potato is good. I put the potato in the. I just took a whole potato, cleaned it up, poked some holes into it, wrapped it, and put it in the oven for an hour at 400 degrees. Oh my God, is it good?
This one was one of those. Sean made the potato, but I got a new recipe for a potato that I absolutely need to make. It is from the kitchen, and they after they fry and brown the potato, it looks almost like a kind of a hockey puck, but it's not round. It's oval, and then you put a lot of butter in there, and you put your sage, your rosemary, your thyme in there, because you first fry it in oil, then you add the butter and the herbs. Then once that's cooking, you add chicken stock in there, and you cook it and you cook it and you cook it. And the longer it sits in that brine, the more flavorful it comes out. And then once it's done, and you can throw it under the broiler if you want, just to give it a little bit of, but then you slice it on the bias, and it is absolutely looks gorgeous. You can then throw some chives on top and a little bit of the sauce, and it's like my mouth was watering. And so I was like going, oh, I got to make that potato. So there's more ways to bake a potato.
Well, I love after you bake a potato, right? You don't have it like most people will take the mix up and make mashed potatoes. I like to chop it all up in pieces.
No.
All right. No. You're not done listening yet, girl. Chop it up in pieces. Mash it. All right. Salt, pepper, some garlic onto it. Little olive oil in the pan and fry it.
Oh.
So you're not making it's not mashed potatoes, but it's a whole potato mashed and then mashed into a potato form, like a potato burger. And yeah,
I could probably hang with that because I was like, well, no. I mean, I have taken my baked potato before, sliced it up, and then fried it.
Yeah,
that I've definitely done.
No,
yeah.
This is you've got it all the way cooked, right? And then you save it as a potato, and then you mash it and make it into your potato hamburger, your potato
like a little patty.
Yeah, you make it into like a potato patty, and then you fry it again. All right, and that is to me, you know what I mean. Maybe throw a little cheese into it, some bacon bits, some garlic, salt, pepper. All right, and it's the olive oil, don't butter, olive oil.
Okay,
and fry it. It is. I'm letting you know it's a little richer than your butter, but it is so good.
Oh my goodness, you're making my mouth water just thinking about it. But yeah, sometimes you got to experiment with different things. So, yeah, with this one, with the fish, it was like, do I turn it into fish tacos or do I just, it's like, well, no, I'm just gonna keep it simple and just heat it up and enjoy it. That was my that's the way I planned it out. I'm like, well, nope, this is what I'm doing. And I looked at the recipes today and I said, do I want to switch this up? And I was like, well, nope, it's just going to be what it's going to be. That's where I kept it at. I wasn't going to mess with it. It was like, I already have what I want. And sometimes y'all, it's like, if you already know what you want, just keep it that way. Don't switch it up because it's like, then you're just going to give yourself more work.
The one thing that I actually thought about doing, but I mean, when I looked through all the things that were favorites, I almost was going to do Lyndon Johnson's chicken fried steak.
Oh yeah,
almost with some potatoes, some gravy. That one there was very fun. Gerald Ford's pot roast. I would love to know what pot roast they did because I mean, pot roast is an interesting pot. It's just basically take a roast, add some seasoning, stick it in a slow cooker and let it sit all day, And
of course, back then they didn't have that, so
yeah. But I do have to say, some of the most interesting ones on there, and I got to give cheers to them. We got them in Mr. Carter and his grits. The only one really that had a breakfast food listed in there, grits. Right?
Well, there was some that did like their hard cider for breakfast. So
yeah, there was a lot of them that like their food was mentioned was like a it was like a dessert, right? But Richard Nixon's cottage cheese and ketchup.
Oh my goodness, that was like, that's what I was going to say. That was so disgusting. And he had it for breakfast.
Like,
that doesn't even
I'm glad
go.
I wasn't old enough to vote for Nixon when he was in president, because I don't know if I'd voted for that. If we had to vote for president based on food, all right, I would guess I would have to vote for Clinton because I liked cheeseburgers, right? I would have to say the one president that would not have gotten my vote based on his food would have to be Richard Nixon.
Right.
All right.
Yeah, that was pretty disgusting. I was like, how is that even okay?
But the interesting one was President Obama. He liked nachos, baby.
Oh. Well,
he was all right, right there. Wait, no. That's to me, he's my party president because he liked nachos and beer. Right? Mm-hmm. He's like the president you want to go to college with, right? You want him for a college roommate.
Yeah. Nachos super easy to make. Get some good quality I don't have any up here. Some good quality tortilla chips. Juanitas. Mission has some good ones, but Juanitas are the best because they're so crispy. You put a layer on a sheet pan, like a cookie sheet pan, preferably with the lip, because you're going to put a lot of stuff in there. Then what you do is that you add cheese to it. And then you add, you had to have had your meat already cooked and your ground beef already seasoned, cooked and everything, because then you add the meat to it. Then you add more cheese and more nachos, and then more cheese, and then more meat. You throw it in the oven for like 10 minutes, until the cheese starts to really melt. And you have to add more cheese than you think and go all the way to the edges, because the cheese will disappear all of a sudden when you're pulling at it. And you'll go, oh, this doesn't have cheese. This doesn't have cheese. Put a lot of cheese. So cover everything in cheese and the meat. Then you add your sliced up tomatoes, your sliced up green onions, your sliced up olives, your sour cream, your guac. And then you just put that sheet pan out on the table, and everybody just has their own little plate and they just grab. It is so much fun and it is so good. You can also make it with chicken, but I prefer the ground beef. But yeah, nachos are a lot of fun to make. And then of course you have your salsa. So whatever hot sauce if you want, or your taco sauce or whatever it is, or your special hot sauce that Sean makes with the salsa with ketchup. And I forget what else he adds to it, but it is really good. Yep. It's like his own homemade taco sauce.
You talk about that, but there was no president who mentioned tacos.
And you would have thought, there was one that mentioned Mexican food.
Yes, there was one that mentioned Mexican food, but didn't say tacos.
No.
All right. There is no president that said they liked ribs, pork, baby back ribs.
Yeah, that would have been one that I would have thought would have been
that or chicken wings.
Yeah,
those are party type foods that none of them were mentioned there. However, right. I do got to say this, and I know many people didn't like this man, and it is most recent, but President Trump was a fast food guy. If you remember, was it the college football team that won and came to the White House? And part of it was he just went and had a big order of McDonald's burgers brought in, fast food. Like
McDonald's and Burger King, and the reason was that they have a certain level of cleanliness.
Yeah.
The main reason those were his two favorites. But Lyndon B. Johnson, who was the chicken fried steak guy,
yeah,
he loved Mexican food, cornbread and grits, but he also, because he was Texan, he loved his chicken fried steak.
Yep.
Yeah, so, and of course he also was the whiskey Scotch guy. But yes. He was one that loved Mexican food. And I think in part because he was in Texas, he could get Mexican food, so it was more Tex-Mex food, I'm sure, than Mexican, but he did say he liked Mexican food, which can encompass a lot of different things.
Well, so I have to admit, this was got to be the most interesting show I think we've ever done, because this revolved around doing some research, right? And that is to find out what presidents drank and ate, you know. And I have to say that, you know what I mean, just because I chose steak and potatoes doesn't mean that he was my favorite president. All right. And if I had to choose based on my likes and of food and drink, I would have to say I would be a Clinton supporter. If it went on my drink, let's take, first of all, what was on my drink, we're going to take all the whiskey and bourbon drinkers out, because that was just mentioned by a lot and it's hard to pick one. But the one-offs, all right, what do you think my president would be, since no one's guessed it yet, right? My president based on my drink.
So I would have been all over the place too, because first having the fish, that was one thing, you know, that because I had it. So for me, I do like my fish. So that was McKinley and rye. So it was kind of a twofold across the board with the rye as well as the fish. But then you have, and I almost was going to make, so McKinley, in case you all didn't know, there was an Alaska mountain named after him, but then it was renamed during Obama's administration. He named it to the Denali to honor Native American culture. But not only did McKinley, I mean, I guess he was well liked or well known or well something for him to have an Alaska mountain named after him. But he also had a drink named the McKinley Delight. Mm-hmm. And it was rye whiskey, sweet vermouth, cherry brandy, and absinthe.
Yep.
So I was like going, okay, I considered making the drink, and I was like, well, I don't have any cherry brandy nor a substitute. And with absinthe, I could have put Pernod instead of the absinthe in there. So I had a substitute for that. So I almost went all the way, you know, with McKinley, you know, so close to no cigar.
Yeah. Well, no, if I had to go on drink, all right, I would have voted for Kennedy. And we didn't say what Kennedy's was, but you have to go figure it out.
I know. See if anybody is like, we keep dropping hints.
And no, wait a minute. And no, because it is more of a modern drink, though. None of our non-alcoholic drinkers chose Dr. Pepper. What's up with that? How many Texans were president, and none of them chose Dr. Pepper?
Well, how old is Diet Dr. Pepper?
100 years old. Diet's not 100 years old.
There's
the key is they had Diet. I don't drink Diet anything.
Yeah, well, it was Diet Cola or Diet Coke. And so Diet Cola is anything diet. So diet drinks are not until more recent. So
yeah,
that is why I will give them that. That is because of that you did not see it. I know you're Dr. Pepper. You're precious, Dr. Pepper. Ooh, the precious. You can't let go of the commercials. You can't let go of your Dr. Pepper.
I right now I'm sniffing on my bourbon to kind of finish this meal out, because there's one more thing we've got to bring out. You know that.
Oh yes, I have my old fashioned right here. And normally this would be dessert for me. I have no qualms about having a cocktail for dessert. Kind of like Starbucks for me. That can be a dessert for me at Starbucks. But we do have dessert, and I will pull it out.
You have to dessert, and we have to go get it. I know yours is probably closer than mine, but we're going to go get it.
Mine is right here.
And then and I'm going to go get it, and then we're going to talk about why we picked this for our dessert.
So I have it close, but I needed to get a little dish for it. So that's the slowness for me, is getting the dish. But family owned since 1931, Umpqua. This is local, so
Now I think I've got to think of it's a Haagen-Dazs vanilla. So we chose to finish it off tonight with vanilla ice cream because there were two presidents who liked ice cream. And one of the presidents liking ice cream happens to be our current president. So we had to do a toast to him.
For no other reason than because he's current president. That's
because he's current president. All right. Not saying we like him or dislike him. It's just because he's our current president. He is a president. So
you don't have to like, but just show respect. I learned that many times ago.
On this show, we show respect for him. So, and ice cream is his favorite. So, Uncle Joe, we're having ice cream for you.
And the best way to have ice cream, y'all, is with the fork. And the reason is because, especially if you're having really good ice cream, when you have it with the fork and you take a bite with the spoon, you're tasting the metal first. And with the fork, you taste the ice cream first.
Ice cream and bourbon?
I can throw some bourbon on my ice cream. Oh, that actually goes very well with my old fashioned.
I know. I'm just thinking, it's a shame old Mr. Joe there doesn't like alcohol because he doesn't know what he's missing with bourbon and ice cream.
Oh my goodness, this tastes really well together.
Yeah.
So next time you go get a nice old fashioned, also order, some vanilla ice cream or some cherries Jubilee.
Oh,
with an old fashioned, that would go very well.
So. Well, looking down all of the president's food and drink, I gotta say, not many of them had bad taste.
Although I would question the squirrel.
Yeah.
And the mutton.
Don't think I would be doing squirrel or mutton.
But pickled herring,
Pickled herring, yes.
Yeah, that I would absolutely try. Those were the top 3 weirdest, and I would say weirdest of everything that was out there. But grilled cheeseburgers.
There's some cornbread in there, some oysters.
Oysters were in there.
Yep, Van Buren was an oyster guy. A couple people had cornbread. Fried clams was Franklin Pierce was fried clams. We see what cornmeal pancakes. Rutherford B. Hayes.
Yeah, and Washington because that's the whole pancake.
Yep.
Yeah.
Chicken salad, Woodrow Wilson. Apple pie, Calvin Coolidge was an apple pie guy. We got to give him that. And Herbert Hoover was a sweet potatoes and marshmallows. If you ain't had that at Thanksgiving, I don't know what's wrong with you.
Right. So there is a lot of history there and then to see what is common across the board. That was also kind of fun.
Yeah.
Well, I haven't had ice cream in a little bit, so this is a treat.
I know.
This is a really darn good treat. I probably should have gotten a picture of my ice cream before I ate it, but oh well. Thank you, Umpqua. Maybe I'll just get a picture of Umpqua with my Umpqua and bourbon. I mean, you got your ice cream and your bourbon in there.
Got my bourbon.
Thank you, Umpqua. Let's turn this just a little bit. Because that'll be posted. So put this away before it melts on me. I had it at the office and I completely forgot I had it at the office. I could tell where I just had like just a little bit from the last podcast.
Yeah.
And this a little bit from this podcast. So well, this was fun though. I got to have some really yummy food.
I got to finish up Uncle Joe's ice cream. Last spoon.
Well, while you do that, I'll remind everybody to go to likethewayyoudrink.com and sign up for the Insiders Club. What is the Insiders Club, you may ask? Well, it is a way for you to get closer to Tim and me with what we do. You'll have access first to anything, any event that we're doing, any type of swag that's coming out, anything that has to do with food and drink that we are talking about doing. You get insight into that, and you get to have a little bit of a say-so. So if there's something you like, you get to say, hey, would you do this? And we will most likely will say yes to you. Yeah, we'll listen. Unless it's way out there, like Kurt giving me my Lord. Oh my goodness, that's just horrible. But I did try it, just not on the podcast. So you know what? With certain things that I'm questioning, we might taste it before we bring it on the podcast. But there's other things we might just say, hey, we're gonna take a crack at it and try it out. So make sure you go to likethewayyoudrink.com. Make sure you are 21 and over, because if you are under 21, you cannot be part of our Insiders Club, because this is about food and drink and spirits, and that's a no-no. So
yeah,
no on that. So thanks for being here. Make sure you sign up and share this podcast if you enjoy it. We're on all your channels, and if you want to see it with the video, Facebook and YouTube are the two places to do that. For the audio, you can find it on all your favorite channels, Spotify and Apple and all the others.
So, and every episode is brought to you by both Gladys and I's businesses. So, a little bit about us. All right. What we do, we help bring this podcast to us every week. So, Gladys, tell us about your business.
So I am Gladys Boutwell, Insurance by Design. I help employers become the employer of choice in their own field based on them providing benefits to their employees, because when they show that they care about their employees will work harder and then will make their clients happy, which means that this business will continue to have return business because they've made their employees happy. So are you an employer that says, well, can I afford it? Guess what? We will find something between zero to high dollar values that you can look at what is going to work for you. I had that conversation with somebody today, and she says, oh my goodness, yes, I want to do this. I thought it was going to be out of my range. You would be surprised what is in your range. So go to insurancedesignpros.com to check out my website, or if you want to schedule an appointment, go to enrollnoworegon.com. That is enrollnoworegon.com. But from Insurance Design Pros, you can get a hold of me. Doesn't matter what state you're in. If I can't help you, I'll still answer your questions and find you a great broker that will. And this is my co-host.
Hey guys, my name is Tim Gillette. I actually own a website company called Simple Easy Websites. We have the trademark Simple Easy Marketing, and we decided to build our own division doing websites for you. Our websites are done in three different divisions. Number one, we have lead pages. We'll build a lead page for you, one-page website, get you up and going, and keep you going with a very low-cost, very efficient hosting plan that keeps your one page up and even can convert into leads. The second pages we do is our 5-page template of websites. 5 pages built out for your website. All right. And we have 3 different hosting packages that go with that. And then anything over 10 to 15 pages and over, we have a custom website division. All right. So you can check out all 3 of those, simpleeasywebsites.com. All right. To find out what package is good for you or what you need for your website, hey, book a one-on-one call with us and we'll actually go over your needs, go over what you want to do, and tell you the best solution for your web needs. Tim Gillette, Simple Easy Websites.
There you go. I was going to say, you can switch your...
Yeah, I should put my website up there so you can see it. Yeah, what an idea.
I know, right? It happens. It's a good thing.
Anyway.
Thank you all for being here today. We appreciate y'all. If you like us, if you found us goofy, funny, if you've learned something, please like our podcast and share with your friends.
In the meantime, guys, we will see you next week with another episode. Tim and Gladys out. Cheers.